Jay Slater's desperate family have returned to the mountainous region in Tenerife just over my shoulder where he vanished from to continue searching for the missing 19-year-old. The police ended their search last weekend after 12 days, but Jay's mum Debbie Duncan and dad Warren Slater refused to give up hope and were back here today scouring the scrubland for any clue, any trace for the apprentice bricklayer who disappeared into thin air on June the 17th. But this area is so vast and so unforgiving in the heat that an extensive coordinated search would take dozens of people, aerial assistance and mapping. This perhaps demonstrates just how desperate Jay's family are for a breakthrough, a chink of hope that may solve this tragic riddle. In the last 24 hours, Spanish Guardia Civil have given permission for independent rescue teams to launch their own searches, which now begs the question, will they come from Britain and will the police in the UK fly out to assist? For now, they've been kept at arm's length as they respect international jurisdiction. They've offered to help, but for now the Spanish Guardia Civil say they have the investigation under control.
Welcome to Most Mysterious Missing with me, Helena. Today we discuss the disappearance of 19-year-old Jay Slater from the UK. Jay was on his first holiday abroad with his mates, and he went to Tenerife with two friends. They attended a 3-day rave, and after that he wanted to continue partying. He ended up getting lost in a mountainous area on the 17th of June, 2024. He phoned his friend to say that he was lost, thirsty, had cut his leg on a cactus, and only had 1% battery power left on his phone. What's strange about this case is that he decided not to catch a bus and instead hike for 11 hours back to his apartment. The Tenerife authorities searched for him across the mountainous area for 2 weeks before calling off the search, and now friends and family and other hikers are searching for him, and now 3 weeks later he still hasn't been found. But questions remain. Why didn't he catch a bus? Why did he decide that an 11-hour walk without water was possible? If he had slipped and fallen, if he had died of dehydration, surely they would have found a body by now after 3 weeks of searching. Maybe there's another explanation. Jay was an apprentice bricklayer from Oswald Twistle, Lancashire, UK. According to Jay's mum, Debbie, Jay was a hard-working, normal 19-year-old lad who had lots of friends, both male and female, and was really looking forward to going on holiday with his two mates. He had a close relationship with his friends and family, and his mum, Debbie, his dad, his brother, and friends all travelled out to Tenerife to help with the search. So let's look at the timeline of events. On Sunday, June the 16th, 2024, this was the last day of the 3-day music festival that he attended with friends at a nightclub in the tourist resort of Playa de las Americas in the south of the island. At 7:30 in the morning, he posts a picture of himself on Snapchat from the doorway of the apartment, holding a cigarette with a blanket wrapped around him. At 8:30 in the morning, he calls his friend, Lucy Law, telling her that he'd attempted to walk back to his accommodation after either missing his bus or deciding not to get a bus, but this journey would have taken more than 10 hours on foot. During this phone call with Lucy, which was his last known phone call, he told her he had cut his leg on a cactus, had no idea where he was. He wasn't aware of his surroundings, he needed a drink, and his phone was on 1%. His phone runs out of battery shortly after, with his last known location being pinged in rural Deteno Park. He is immediately reported missing to the authorities, and the next day some family members fly out to Tenerife to join the search. At this point, his mother, Debbie Duncan, said she feared her son had been taken against his will. On the 19th of June, the searchers temporarily moved to the Los Cristianos area in the south of the island due to a potential lead, but this is quickly discounted and the search returns north. There is a live cam online pointing towards the village of Masca, near to where Jay went missing, and I spent many hours watching this live cam, hoping to see him, but to no avail. 4 days after the search began, Lancashire Constabulary in the UK offered to help with the search, but the Tenerife Civil Guard refused help. They said they had all the resources necessary to carry out this search. On the 6th day of the hunt, the search parties seemed noticeably smaller compared to the other days, with only a handful of emergency workers visible in the village of Masca and the surrounding areas. Searchers included the Civil Guard, Fire Brigade, police, dog handlers, drones, helicopter. On the 23rd of June, search teams narrowed their efforts on small buildings close to where his phone pinged. Officers from the Guardia Civil in the Canary Island could be seen circling two structures at the bottom of a ravine. Efforts appeared to be solely focused on one area after days of searches, but again to no avail. So what about witnesses? Well, one lady came forward to say that she had seen Jay that morning near the bus stop. He'd asked her, "What time is the bus?" And she told him 10 a.m. And then he went over to her again and asked her, "What time is the bus?" She again told him 10 a.m. Half an hour or so later, she saw him walking up the hill in the wrong direction, walking fast. Of the two men he stayed with the previous night, one of them was known as Johnny Vegas, and he is now known to be a convicted drug dealer. They told police that Jay had entered their apartment alive and had left alive. The two men later spoke to journalists and said that Jay had asked for a cigarette that morning, had wanted some food, and didn't want to catch a bus. The two men had prolonged their holiday for 1 day in Tenerife to speak to the police. However, they have since left the island and returned back to the UK. The reason police didn't make them stay for longer? That's because they didn't have any evidence that a crime had been committed. But of course, as time goes on, with no body found, is it more likely that a crime has been committed rather than Jay just simply going missing? I have been following this story since the very beginning, and what confused me and others is that firstly they said that Jay was wearing a white t-shirt with black shorts and possibly a black man bag. However, halfway through the search, it was changed, and that he was wearing a grey top matching shorts with a green stripe. Might this have affected the number of people that had seen Jay? Jay's phone last pinged in the rural Deteno Park, but reporter Nick Pisa believes that his phone may have been thrown. Pisa said the mobile's GPS location could only be possible if the phone was thrown into the terrain, because the terrain was highly inaccessible, full of cacti. Pisa said where the ping came from was rather surprising, because it was really steep to get to, and it was covered in undergrowth and cacti. To get there, you'd have to need a machete, or, he suggested, someone had thrown the phone into the undergrowth. Former missing persons boss Mike Neville has explained his personal theory. Speaking on GB News, he criticised the Tenerife authorities after they called off the search just 2 weeks after starting, arguing the whole affair had been badly handled. And his theory is that he's in that park somewhere, he's taken some drugs, possibly had some drink, he's confused and exhausted. Neville goes on to say, it was initially portrayed as Jay being a young lad on his first holiday, but it turns out he's been convicted of a violent assault. As well as a search of the park, the police should be looking at the background and asking, is there anything else going on? They don't seem to have done that. It's been badly handled in that sense. Interestingly, Jay was convicted as a teenager of a violent assault against someone, but he himself was assaulted as a young lad. Could this have any bearing on his disappearance? Unbelievably, according to the Canarian Weekly, there are 82 missing persons in the Canary Islands, and some searches are bigger than others. This includes 23-year-old British man Ricardo Santana. On the 15th of June 2019, he was riding a jet ski off the coast of Tenerife. He was wearing red shorts, and it's thought he may have jumped into the sea from his jet ski to take a dip in the water, but despite search and rescue efforts, he has never been found. Might Jay have come across some dangerous wildlife up there in the mountains? There are many dangerous species on Tenerife, including the giant rat, which carries diseases, the yellow scorpion, viper snake, black widow spider, false smooth snake, and the Tenerife poison frog. There are several species of scorpions in Tenerife, some of which have venomous stings that can cause severe pain, swelling, and even death. The most common species found on the island is the Buthus tenettinus scorpion, which is known for its aggressive behavior and potent venom. But again, if he had come to harm by one of these animals, surely his body would have been found. The Canary Islands have a low crime rate and are one of the safest places in Europe. Guns and drugs are prohibited, robbery rates are low, and murder rates are around 1 in every 10,000. In fact, crime rates there are around half that of London crime rates. But of course, if you go to a tourist area, there are going to be drugs available. So what on earth happened to Jay? Was he kidnapped? Did he suffer a psychotic episode due to taking drugs? Did he simply become lost? Did he succumb to the elements, being hot in the day and cold at night? Did he suffer an injury falling down the mountain? Was there a serial killer at large? Did he want to become lost? Did he run away? Was he afraid? According to reports, Jay is just one of 11 people who have disappeared in Tenerife in the past 6 months alone. The Sun reports that local police were told 2 years ago that their resources were insufficient. Official data from the Spanish ministry states that between 2020 and 2023, at least 460 adults went missing in the Canary Islands from a population of just 2.2 million. One expert says there are many disappeared in the Canary Islands, and the number has increased after the pandemic. We are at the head of the country, and we are not clear why. Perhaps the topography or the social structure have an influence, but we don't know. Due to the fact that he'd called his friend to say that he was lost, had 1% phone battery and needed a drink, I think this concludes that he did get lost in the rural Deteno Park. It's a very unforgiving landscape, very dry, hot in the day, cold at night, with very little water. However, unfortunately, I don't think he could have survived those conditions for 3 weeks. But what do you think has happened to Jay Slater? Please leave your comments below. May we never forget the strange and mysterious disappearance of Jay Slater.